Hi, everyone. This is Professor of Science, Jeff Shipley, political science that is, coming at you, episode 2, with our new political science YouTube chat room podcast thing. The reason I'm talking to you today is to fill an urgent public need that the state of Iowa, particularly the Regent universities, have completely failed in offering any sort of semblance of political science education to the people of Iowa. I think that's definitely true of some of the things I've seen university faculty publish, and a half-cocked, loose sort of intellectualism across Iowa. And we really need an in-depth study of political science with case studies and really testing these theories and exploring what political science means. So that's why I'm joining today. And I don't really know a whole lot, just to be very clear to my guests in the audience, but I think I have, had at least a little bit of experience with the levers of political power and have stood for election, probably a little bit more often than some of these university faculty have, these tenured professors. And so we're going to contribute to the field of political science as best we can. And I'm really happy today joined with my guest, Naomi Matthews, joining us from Austin, Texas, who's a very young political professional. Before I turn it over to her and get started, I just want to say it's, that we're coming out of here from lived personal experience. That's what we're talking to you from today. And obviously the most important thing I think the audience knows, before you talk at all, take some deep breaths and say a prayer to God, because, there are a lot of people talking and none of us really know what we're talking about. So anyway, just throwing that out there to set the stage. This has been a very awkward introduction, but I'm happy for everyone joining us today. And just welcome to my guest, Naomi. Naomi, thank you for joining me today and agreeing to do this and talk. I think you have a lot to offer in the field of political science. And so instead of me introducing you, just as we're getting acquainted, tell us, who you are and why you're joining us today, and your contributions to the field of political science.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm really excited to be here. Like you mentioned, my name is Naomi. I live in Austin, Texas, and work for Young Americans for Liberty as the grassroots creative director. So basically, what I do day to day in the field of politics is I get to use creativity and graphic design to make mailers, literature, digital ads to help candidates or hurt candidates that are anti-liberty and help the pro-liberty ones. And I first got involved and realized I cared a lot about promoting liberty and just making politics better. When I got to college, I found my local YAL chapter and got involved there, meeting other students, talking to them about liberty and politics and all these ideas.
All right, so let me just butt in there. So how did you first get predisposed? You said you found your YAL chapter. What happened in your mind that made you want to seek out a YAL chapter? When did you get, I guess, triggered by political theory, so to speak?
I'm trying to think back on when my first experience with politics was, and really the earliest I can remember would be probably the 2012 elections. I was 11 years old at that time, and I grew up in a really conservative area of the country. I grew up in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I was homeschooled, and so all of my friends were just and their families were just diehard Republicans. And all I knew about politics at that time was Republicans are good, Democrats are bad. That's it. And so for a long time, that's just what I thought politics was and how it worked. I thought that was how I was supposed to believe. But then in high school, I started doing competitive debate and forensics. We had to research issues like economics.
Was that through homeschool, or did you partner with the public school for that?
Both, actually. I did a homeschool league called NCFCA, and then I also joined my local high school forensics team. So I got a mix of both. But the topics we had to debate were things like economics, and I learned how important the free market and capitalism is, and how much good it does for everyone in society. I had to learn.
Where'd you learn that? How'd you learn that?
I had to read a lot of different research articles and briefs and books. I think that was when I first read The Law by Frederick Bastiat. He's kind of been one of my heroes ever since. And then just from debating and discussing these ideas in debate rounds with other people, really looking at both sides, weighing the pros and cons, and eventually, coming to my own beliefs, not just beliefs that were, out there being repeated by political pundits. But what really made me develop my own personal political beliefs actually was we were debating national security versus privacy. And at that time, it was also, this was 2015. So at that time, there was the Republican presidential race going on. And obviously Trump won that, but Rand Paul was running at the time. And I remember watching the debates, and he was the only one up there just being consistent about the limited government pro-liberty message. He was really the only one speaking out against the giant surveillance state. And something at that time happened as well. I think it was the Ferguson shooting and the Ferguson riots in St. Louis. And when I first heard about that, my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, big government is bad. The government just killed someone. I bet all my Republican and conservative friends are going to be so upset that the government just killed an innocent, or maybe not innocent, but like just killed someone, right? This is a violation of government power. And I was really shocked and confused to then see all my Republican friends and all these Republicans, which I had been told were the good guys, defending, this police shooting. And that's when I started to realize, maybe I'm not just a traditional Republican or conservative. And I looked more into Rand Paul, and then eventually learned about his dad, Ron Paul, and kind of developed my own philosophy and realized I was more of a libertarian.
Okay. So you had, as a teenager, you had formal training in basically debate and critical thinking and forensics. And as a teenager, you were contemplating big issues about the nuances in partisan politics and, worldview issues of national security versus privacy. And so as a teenager, you were steeped in that. And would you say that's fair to say that gave you a solid foundation to launch a career in politics then?
It definitely did. Something I'm also really glad that I did in high school was one of my homeschool friends worked for Americans for Prosperity. They do door knocking and volunteer canvassing for economic freedom issues. And I got involved with that. So I think I was like 15 when I started just knocking doors, talking to voters about different
That was
policies.
a paid canvassing position?
That was actually a volunteer one.
Okay.
I was 14. What happened was, I think my best friend's older sister worked for Americans for Prosperity. So she would just get all of us to go and knock doors on Saturdays, and then just give us like free pizza and just like free stuff. And as a 14-year-old, it was super fun. And yeah.
Well, the fun's definitely important. That's great. Have you ever taken a paid canvassing position then? Because I know your organization is somewhat notorious for paid canvassing positions.
Yes. A year ago, I was working in Georgia on Matt Gertler's congressional campaign canvassing in Georgia for the Georgia election.
Was that as fun as the Americans for Prosperity experience, or was that a little bit different?
It was different because this was a full-time, no days off, very intense deployment. And I was also walking like at least probably more than 10 miles every day in rural Georgia, up and down mountains. So it was very strenuous and very stressful, but it was also an amazing experience.
Would you stretch out? Would you do any sort of stretching or any sort of like yoga, calisthenic routine to prepare for 10 miles walking?
No. I probably should have.
Would you have like sore muscles then after all that?
The first 2 days I had really sore muscles, but after that, I just got used to it.
Okay. Do you have any dietary restrictions? Are you vegetarian or anything like that?
I'm vegan, yes.
You are vegan. Okay, I thought I remembered that. When did you decide to be a vegan? Why is that? And why are you a vegan? And when did you become one?
Almost 4 years ago in June 2017, I went vegetarian. And that was ironically, it wasn't something I had been thinking about a lot or contemplating a lot. I was actually just driving in the car with my mom, and we were just having some banter back and forth. And I think the topic came up about animal rights or veganism. And I thought we were just having like a playful discussion, but apparently she got kind of annoyed and was like, well, just if you really think that, go vegetarian then. And I was just like, fine, I will. And from that point, I just stopped eating meat totally. I really hadn't gone into it with any research. So the first week was very rough because I just ate like peanut butter and bananas. But then I started doing more research into, what exactly you're supposed to eat, learning about the nutritional aspects of vegetarianism.
So what'd you have for breakfast this morning?
I didn't actually have breakfast.
Deliberately, or just, are you deliberately fasting, or is that just because you?
I just don't normally eat breakfast. It just isn't really my thing.
Do you do coffee?
Yes, I do coffee.
With almond milk or what? Or just take it black?
Usually with soy milk.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. And then you don't eat honey?
No, that's one of the things I won't buy it, and I don't buy products with it. But that is one of the things that I'm more flexible on. Like if I'm at someone's house and they'll purposefully make, I've had this happen a few times, they'll purposefully make something that
to accommodate
is vegan,
you,
but they'll add honey because they just don't realize it. Like I'm not gonna be like throw a fit and be like, no.
Well, isn't it true? Like, I mean, the bees, I don't know about bee colonies or nothing, but it's like the bees worked pretty hard on that. And, I think maybe they want you to enjoy it. Like, how do you know the bees don't want you to enjoy their honey?
Yeah, I mean, so honey is the reason I'm more liberal with honey is because
you're a liberal now. Great.
I haven't done a ton of research into like the honey industry to the extent that I've learned about, the dairy industry and the egg industry and, the meat industry as a whole. But especially on some of the few facts I do know about honeys, especially on a lot of these larger honeybee farms where a lot of the commercial honey that most
all right, this is getting pretty politically correct. This is getting really politically incorrect. We got to talk about something else. This is really you're going to cause a lot of damage to Iowa's animal husbandry operation if I let you keep talking. So I need to censor this immediately. No, I'm just kidding. That's great. I really admire vegetarian lifestyles. I don't practice it on my own. I guess I tried to go vegetarian earlier in my life, and I kind of failed after a few weeks where I had kind of like a debilitating brain fog and then an intense craving for chicken. So yeah, was your transition to a vegan lifestyle, has that been painless, or does it feel like a sacrifice? Or
the first week it was rough because I did not know what I was doing. I went into it with zero research.
But how rough could it be? You said you're eating peanut butter and bananas. That sounds fine. What's rough about that?
I didn't really know. I guess it was just mentally rough because I was like, oh, I didn't really know what I was supposed to be eating. But it was relatively painless because after about a month, I never really wanted to eat like meat again. And then a few months later, I gradually transitioned to veganism. I did it gradually. I didn't go cold turkey and do it all at once, but I slowly started cutting out dairy. I slowly started cutting out eggs from my diet until I was 100% just plant-based.
What about bugs? Do you eat bugs?
No, I've never really ate bugs beforehand, and I don't intend to start doing that.
Bill Gates wants you to eat bugs.
I'll pass.
I think we evolved past that a long time ago. I think that's for my dog. So I got a dog, and his favorite thing is when I pick the ticks off him, he insists on eating them. What do you think about that?
Oh, I mean, that's interesting. So my feelings on bugs are, I think if a bug is like violating the nap, right? Like if it's trying to bite you or attack you.
If the bug is violating the nap, so you're imposing your ideological standards on nature.
But if like a bug is like trying to bite me or hurt me, I'm willing to practice self-defense against it.
So you'll kill a mosquito.
Yeah, I don't go around looking.
But you have plenty. Wait. Okay. So yeah, wait. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you say you will kill a mosquito?
If it is threatening me, then yes.
But isn't it also
But in
true?
general, like if there's a bug inside of my house or inside of my work, I will always try to like capture it alive first and then just let it outside.
Do you capture your own spiders, or do you make a man do that for you?
I capture my own spiders.
Okay. So going back to this mosquito thing, why do you feel it's appropriate to kill a mosquito if it's just trying to help itself to some of your blood?
Well, if a human was trying to do that to me, I would feel justified.
That's not the question. I'm not talking about a human. I'm not talking about Bill Gates anymore. I'm talking about a mosquito. Why is it morally sound to you to kill a mosquito if it's taking your blood?
Because I think I have the right to self-defense and to preserve my own life.
So is a mosquito threatening your life?
By taking my blood, in a way, it is. Yeah, I mean.
So if the mosquito successfully fills its whole tummy with blood, you would die from that? Is that your fear? And that's what's causing?
I wouldn't die from it, but it is true that they can carry diseases, and it is, painful and harming me.
What they're
doing? They're going to.
So what? You're gonna make the mosquitoes carry a vaccine passport or something? Is that what you're afraid of diseases? What's going on? This is crazy. You're all over the place. I don't know. I guess for me, I think that you have plenty of blood. All the mosquito is trying to do is just feed its family. And it's also necessary for the ecosystem because the mosquito is going to feed the frogs, which is then going to feed, I don't know, whatever comes up, whatever eats the frogs. I don't know. I feel like your act of violence against the mosquito is disrupting the whole entire food chain. That's my feeling.
I mean,
do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I'm just trying to process everything I'm trying to process everything that you said right there. But it is, when it is like a mosquito is coming at me, trying to physically like invade my space and take my blood, I think that does, in a way, if there was sort of a nap for animals, violate the nap. And we have the right to defend ourselves and keep them away. I mean, you wouldn't justify, even if it's not going to kill me, for a mosquito to try to like take my blood. I still think I have the right to stop that. Like if someone came up to you and robbed you and only took like $10 from you, that's probably not going to destroy you financially, but that still doesn't mean that you can't say, hey, don't do that. Don't steal from me. So I still think it's wrong it's fine for me to defend myself against a bug that is actively trying to attack me, even if it's not going to take my life. I don't think that should have to be the standard.
Okay, and then you would also hold that, I get that you probably would, that if someone was trying to take honey from a beehive, the bees would have the legal right or the moral authority to murder that person.
I mean, yeah.
And then same thing, like for Iowa's animal husbandry industry, if someone's loading, swine into a truck, you would think the swine would have the, moral authority to kill the farmers or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Okay. Do you consider yourself a religious person?
Yeah.
Do you attend a church or a religious gathering regularly?
Yeah, I attend a non-denominational Christian church here in Austin.
Does that mean you worship Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you? What are your primary ecclesiastical tenets of eternal truth?
Well, just the basics. I believe that humans are inherently, just kind of the basic beliefs. I believe that humans are inherently sinful, right? We're not 100% perfect. We have bad tendencies.
What are your bad tendencies?
I get annoyed at people pretty easily.
Okay, I'll stop talking then. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, not like one-on-one, but like in crowds and groups, I definitely kind of don't always act the nicest, especially at like the airport or a crowded grocery store. That's probably
So what's a rude thing? Are you being like outwardly rude or inwardly rude, or what's like an example of that?
Well, definitely inwardly rude because I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, why are there so many people here? Like, I wish they were all gone. Like, and probably like if I'm just walking, I might like cut someone off, or just like snap at people. So I definitely try not to do that. That's just that's probably the one example I can think of.
Okay. Real quick, because we haven't gotten into it, briefly describe your work on, I know you've been advocating for, I think, the passage and maybe the defeat of certain legislation in different state houses across the country. I think it's incredibly impressive that someone your age is influencing policy that'll affect millions of people, and you're getting paid for it, is my understanding, is that they pay you to fulfill this professional duty. So just tell me, what have you been working on this year? What's happening across the country that you've been personally involved in?
Yeah. So in my work, there's really two areas that I work on. There is the election side with Yale's Operation Win at the Door program, where we find students who want to get involved in politics. We find solid pro-liberty candidates, and then we send students out to door knock for those candidates. And then there's the legislative side, where this is a program called Hazlitt Action. We just launched it this year, where we will partner with some of the legislators that we've helped elect, find legislation that they've introduced or legislation that is solid pro-liberty legislation, and we'll use grassroots lobbying tactics in order to get it passed. So on the Operation Win at the Door on the election side, there have been 3 special elections this year.
I don't care about that. Tell me about the grassroots lobbying tactics.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely the fun stuff. There's been several bills that my team has been working on. The big one right now is constitutional carry in Texas. And we also worked on some constitutional carry bills in other states. Like
we didn't need your help in Iowa. That one sailed right through.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. In Texas, it was definitely a fight. We had, students door knocking in targeted legislators' districts, students calling like the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, putting pressure on them to actually pass constitutional carry. And this is a big deal because you'd think, Texas is, it's the Wild West, it's a freedom-loving state. But states that are more liberal than Texas, like New Hampshire, like Maine, they've had constitutional carry for a while now. But in Texas, you still have to obtain a government permit in order to carry your weapon. So I'm really excited that.
So is the governor going to sign that, or where does that bill stand now?
It's passed the House, it passed the Senate, and it's going to the governor's desk. He has said that he will sign it. And so right now we're just waiting for the day that Governor Abbott decides to sign it.
Wonderful. So you were able to be involved in a legislative fight that helped preserve the Second Amendment rights of the Republic of Texas. And sounds like you got some success that you can really talk about for the rest of your life in terms of, impacting world history and current events.
Yeah, this is a big deal. I know I've only been in Texas a year, but for years and years, certain Republicans in Texas have been trying to introduce this legislation, trying to get it passed, but it just never has gotten through, the committees, through all the.
So what do you think the big difference in your political science analysis? What's the difference between Texas in 2021 versus previous years when this tried and failed?
So there's really 3 things that I can think of. The first is I'm going to give a lot of credit to the people Yale had working for the Hazlitt Action program, actually going into legislators' districts, knocking on their doors, putting pressure, having people call them and call their
knocking
offices.
on the doors of their constituents, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And directly going to the residents that elect this guy and saying, hey, call him and tell him to support this bill.
Yes. And then we also sent mailers to certain individuals, calling them anti-gun and urge them to support constitutional carry. So there was a lot of pressure on people this time around. The second thing is,
and that didn't exist in previous years.
No, not to the level that it did this year. In previous years, there was one other group, I think, National Association for Gun Rights, that was doing a lot of good work. But now I think with
But did they ever go directly into a person's district and knock on doors?
I can't say for certain, but I
because that sounds expensive. Doesn't that sound expensive?
Yeah, I don't know the exact. It is pretty expensive, but I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
Okay.
But the second thing that I think really changed is not just the pressure that we're putting on them right now, but during the past election, politicians faced a lot of challenges, like primary challenges, and the issues that they were hearing were, we want constitutional carry. One example was a campaign that I actually did knock doors for a few days, was Shelley Luther was running for state senate in one of the districts, and she was a woman who reopened her salon. She went kind of viral about a year ago for reopening her salon despite Governor Greg Abbott's lockdown order.
You know what we call her? A public health hero.
Yeah. I love her, and she decided to run for state senate against a senator called Drew Springer. And this guy,
was that an incumbent, or is that an open seat? Okay.
He was an incumbent in the state house, and during his time, he had done plenty of political maneuvers to block constitutional carry. He hadn't supported constitutional carry. And Shelly Luther ran against him. One of her big issues was that she would support constitutional carry. And on the campaign trail, he eventually started saying, yes, I will support constitutional carry. I will introduce a bill to get constitutional carry passed. And so even though Shelly Luther didn't win, and this, kind of political hack ended up winning re-election to the state senate, his views on constitutional carry changed because of the primary challenge that he had. The voters were saying that they wanted constitutional carry. They made their voices heard by almost making him lose the election. And he realized that he probably should be supporting constitutional carry. So a lot of the politicians that in past years had been kind of wishy-washy or straight up trying to stop constitutional carry had to change their tune and start actually standing up for our Second Amendment rights. And then third and finally, this is just a theory that I have, is Greg Abbott is unpopular with conservative Republicans right now. He's seeing other governors like DeSantis that handled COVID much better than him, getting a lot of praise. And so Abbott probably needs a way to fix his image with conservative Republicans, which is why he's in favor of constitutional carry now. So he can, once he finally signs the bill, he can get that nice attention and say, yes, I supported constitutional carry. Thanks to me, Texas is a constitutional carry state. So the cynical part of me thinks he's just supporting it so he can try to win back some of those more conservative Republicans and increase his favorability. But
we're giving the people what they want.
Yeah, the overall theme here is that people have finally been putting pressure on their elected officials and scaring them in a way, threatening them with losing their elections to finally pass constitutional carry and restore our Second Amendment rights.
Well, that sounds like a really worthwhile effort, and it's just so amazing that you could be a part of that. I'm looking at some data for Shelly Luther. It looks like she won the general election, then lost in the runoff. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right. There were a lot of candidates in that field for the first special election, and she came in first. Yal had sent a lot of door knockers to her district to deploy for her, and then it was her versus Drew Springer in the runoff election. And we also sent a lot of door knockers for the runoff election. I personally and everyone on Yal's staff drove up to Dallas and knocked doors for her.
Well, so then why was Shelley only improved on her votes by less than 3,000 for the runoff, and Drew Springer was able to increase his vote total by over 10,000? Why do you think Springer was able to mop the floor in the runoff?
So in the runoff, there were, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, and I don't want to take up like all the time talking about the little details, but one of the, I guess the biggest things were, first, the governor endorsed Drew Springer and came out against Shelley Luther. And he used his political PAC. Governor Abbott has a political PAC. He doesn't
Wow, what
really
a
use
prick.
it. He doesn't really use it against Democrats, but he threw a ton of money into the race against Shelley.
So not
there
only
was
did
just,
Governor Abbott shut down her salon, Governor
He shut
Abbott
down-
shut down her political leadership too.
he shut down her salon. He let her, sit in jail for days, and then endorsed her opponent and tried to throw her out of Texas politics. Yeah.
That's problematic. All
Very.
right, well, sounds like you've done a lot of interesting things, but I am a little concerned. You are very outspoken on Twitter, which I think is very important for
Oh no.
a young woman to find her voice. And you have quite a sizable following too. So not only are you influencing state legislatures on landmark legislation, it seems like you're also quite a thought leader in an opinion molder in the broader political ecosystem. But this is really concerning. To me, this makes me very anxious and frankly a little bit afraid. But it looks like on June 4th, 2021 at 12:01 p.m., you tweeted, "Violence is never good, but I prioritizing keeping people free over," or the greater than sign, "making sure politicians feel safe." What do you mean by that? And are you wanting to get kicked off Twitter for inciting violence?
I'm just counting down the days until I get kicked off of Twitter. So who knows?
So is that an admission? Is that an admission that your tweets are inciting violence and a threat?
Let me give you a little bit of context. That tweet, the tweet before that was actually in a tweet thread, but the tweet before that was talking about, libertarians and conservatives. There seem to be some that are, express more anger and more rage over the events that happened on January 6th than they did.
What happened on January 6th?
A bunch of boomers stormed the Capitol during the in order to try to keep Trump president.
Hey, is that what happened?
Yeah.
I think that's the subject of investigation. I don't know if you can be so sure. Whatever happened to Vikingguy? That guy, he wasn't vegetarian. Never mind. We shouldn't.
He was, I know he only ate a very strict organic diet. And I think the judge ruled that they had to feed him an organic only diet because he was doing a starvation protest in jail or something like that.
That sounds awesome. Have you ever done that? Would you starve yourself for vegan food if you were ever arrested?
Yeah, I've never been, so I can't speak from experience.
You've never been arrested?
No, I haven't actually.
How often do you break the law?
I'm not gonna talk about that on video.
All right. Well, so I just Googled vikingguy, and the only thing comes up January 12th. It said he was granted an all organic diet in custody, but we haven't heard anything since January 12th. So he's probably dead right now, or maybe he was reunited with Q. I don't know, but what a cool guy that was. I don't know. This is very politically incorrect. I do agree with the sentiment. I think it's important for the people to be present at the Capitol. Some people seem to be acting a little bit more foolish. I think a woman was shot dead by the Capitol Police. I think that's obviously very sad. But I mean, if you're going to hunger strike for organic food, that sounds like, I don't know, a pretty good deal,
Yeah.
So have you ever thought about deliberately getting arrested? If you wanted to do a vegan hunger strike outside the United States Postal Service or something, and just throw your life on the line for a cause you really believe in? I don't know, do you think that would be an effective political strategy?
I don't see how myself just, going around in my ordinary day life, starving myself would do much for the cause of liberty or for animal rights. But I do think there are strategic ways to use the law and kind of law enforcement and police in order to get things done. One thing that I would do when I was on college campus at my public university, and I traveled to some other universities to do this as well in Missouri, was there are schools with free speech zones where the only place that you're allowed to talk to other students about controversial political ideas on these publicly taxpayer funded universities are in a certain zone. And so my friends and I would go and we would stand outside of the free speech zone, violating the rules in hopes of, getting a confrontation with administrators on video, getting them to give us a citation. And what we could then do once we had that video recording is we could send that video to some lawyers that Young Americans for Liberty was in contact with, and the lawyers would sue the school. And there's tons of precedent out there saying taxpayer funded universities need to respect free speech. And we would either threaten or sue the school into changing their free speech laws in order to make the campus a freer and more open political space.
So have you studied the science of, that'd be non-compliance, or what some people might call even civil disobedience? Like, have you studied that as a philosophy?
I haven't really studied it by like reading tons of articles or maybe like reading it, but I have practiced it before.
Have you ever heard of this book? Can you see that?
I can't really. Oh. That is Gandhi.
It says nonviolent resistance. I just happened to have this on my desk. This was a coincidence. This was not a planned prop. But the concept of nonviolent resistance, is that something you've considered paid much attention to? Because it sounds like you were practicing it and deliberately wanting to nonviolently force a confrontation with political authority on, a place where you had legal and moral grounds to do so. So have you studied that in depth, or is that the subject you guys talk about nonviolent resistance at the Yale office, or?
Not in depth. It's not something that I've been in part of any conversations about, but it has been something that I have practiced in other parts of my life, even in non-YAL related areas. When I was on campus in Missouri at Truman State University, I was still a vegan, and I was a vegan, and I was actually working for PETA at the time as a campus rep, and I was trying to get an animal rights club started on campus. And three other times actually, another student before me had tried to get the club officially recognized by the student bureaucracy, because if we were recognized, we could get funding, we could get access to using spaces on campus property in order to meet, just go through all that boring paperwork in order to be able to use the public university. And so I went through the process. I met all the requirements that the school asked of any student group. I got the members, I got the, constitution for the club, all those little details.
But you're still an outside agitator at this point. You're not a student at this university.
No,
you're coming from the outside.
I was a student. I still am a student at Truman State.
Truman?
Yeah.
Oh, that's in Missouri.
Yeah.
And, okay. I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I was a student there. I was going through all the necessary requirements, but one of the requirements that the school had in order to become a recognized group is you had to do a lot of risk management. And there were different tenets of risk management. One was financial risk, be smart with money. Another was physical risk, stuff like don't start fires on school property, all pretty reasonable sounding. But there was also a tenet you had to meet that was called emotional risk. And you couldn't provide an emotional risk to other people or the members of your club. And when I tried to get my vegan club recognized on campus, they denied it, said we couldn't have any of the funding allocated for student groups. We couldn't reserve meeting spaces on campus because our club was too emotionally risky. Talking about veganism and vegetarianism might make other students or even club members uncomfortable.
Yeah, feel unsafe. Yeah.
So we kept meeting and existing anyway, doing that peaceful, nonviolent resistance. I kept doing events for PETA on campus and eventually got in contact with a group called FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. And they wrote a giant legal brief, threatened to sue the school if they didn't change their rules about emotional risk.
Who made that decision? Was that student activities or was that a student government driven decision?
That was the student activities board. There was
Okay, so the faculty.
Yeah, it was a faculty bureaucracy that
But
decided.
student government, well, at least when I was in school, student government would allocate funds and such, and they would have a budgeting committee that would dole out the money. So anyway, that's how long ago was that? That sounds very interesting.
That was in fall 2019. December 2019 was when
Wow,
fire.
wow, that's not that long ago. So you have a lot of experience making people feel
Emotionally unsafe, it sounds like.
Definitely.
All right, well, there's a couple other tweets that made me feel unsafe. I already mentioned the one. Now, also on June 1st, you said, to be fully transparent with y'all, I'm neither a real goth nor a real libertarian. I just like liberty and wearing black. That's it. So you told us what you're not. Who are you? I mean, we talked a little bit about religion, but how do you define yourself if you're not a libertarian and you're not a goth? Just who are you?
I think so. Some of the, I guess, how I would define myself is I am a liberty activist, right? The reason I say I'm not a real libertarian is because everyone has this tendency to have their own idea of what exactly you need to be in order to be exactly right as a libertarian. And I'll admit, like, I probably have some ideas that don't exactly align with libertarianism perfectly. I'm 20 years old. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still figuring things out. All I know is that I want to live in a more free world. I want to create a more free world for other people.
Do you find, I mean, do you find, like what you just said, that you're still figuring things out, and basically that you're allowing yourself room for your views to evolve or to change or to shift or to not have all the answers? Do you feel like kind of the opposite is present in like people, where a lot of people do feel like they have it figured out and they do have the answer to things? Like, do you run into that kind of mindset? Like the opposite of what you just described?
Yeah, on Twitter, there's always I see a lot of people with probably, I don't know their intentions, but always trying to, catch people in like gotcha moments, or aha, see, you said this, you're not a real libertarian, you slightly contradicted yourself right there. And so, I mean, I don't know why they do it, but yeah, I do think a lot of people do have a very rigid mindset of, this is what you have to believe if you call yourself this. You can't do this type of thing. You can't really associate with this type of people. It's kind of like high school or middle school drama all over again. And I kind of just want to avoid that.
But you were homeschool anyway, so you did avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is the next point. You said on June 3rd, libertarians look more presentable challenge, especially candidates. And then you did the cringe face. And then it says, tempted to start a side hustle doing basic life coaching for libertarians. Crying emoji. I know you all have so much potential, but you got to at least be somewhat normal. What are you talking about? I guess, are you including yourself in these derogatory remarks, or describe what you mean for our audience?
Okay, so let me tell you what prompted this tweet. So I do a lot of graphic design at Yale. That's basically my entire job. So when I'm designing literature for candidates,
And what, use Adobe? What software do you use? Adobe?
Yeah, Adobe.
Okay.
And I'm looking for like pictures of them to use on literature and mailers. And for a lot of these people who, especially those in like the more, I don't want to say New Hampshire, but like a lot of these people, they don't have a presence online. It's very hard to like get quality pictures of them, which is something.
Oh yeah, New Hampshire, you're just really scraping the bottom of the barrel there,
Like I love New Hampshire. I love the Free State Project, but sometimes it drives me crazy because it's very hard to find the materials I need to do my job properly for these candidates in New Hampshire. And especially when you're trying to design, professional looking literature, if they don't have, a headshot or something I can use, there have been times I've literally had to Photoshop smiles onto people to put on their mailers or their literature.
Does
right?
that work?
So,
Can you, are you that good at Photoshop?
yeah, I mean, depending on the picture, you can like adjust the smile. It's an automatic tool. So there's part of it's an automatic tool where Photoshop can just detect the face, and you can like try to like increase their mouth smile. And then part of it is just manually kind of just trying to like edit their eyebrows and smile.
These Liberty candidates are so unattractive that they need to be digitally altered to present themselves to voters. Is that what you're saying?
Not most of them,
But a lot of them.
not even a lot of them. I've only done that like twice.
Like 15 times. It's only happened like 20 times. Well, so I guess I have a little bit of a beef. This was probably your predecessor, because this is a legitimate problem, and finding a headshot. Well, one, I'll just say this, from my political science perspective, being a candidate is difficult. It's tough to plaster your face everywhere and put your name everywhere. I'd say in New Hampshire, it's probably a little bit easier. Iowa, I'm still one of the smaller states. Obviously, like a Texas Senate race, like Shelly Luther, it's a, real big ball game over there. But even in my quaint little corner of Iowa, it's still a little bit nerve-wracking, and finding that right picture is not as easy as it might seem. A lot of time, professional portraits just look kind of hacky. Having a photographer that can capture like a legitimate action shot, because I think the candid photos are really the best of candidates, when they're either delivering a speech, or for me, I had photos of myself doing like stand-up comedy that I really liked, but didn't necessarily directly translate over to. Anyway, Young Americans for Liberty, they kept using this photo of me from 2014 where I was squinting because I was looking into the sun. And I really disliked them using that photo, because even something for me, I wanted the photo to be present. You're like current. Like I would cringe if I used a 2018 photo on my 2020 campaign. Like that would have made me cringe, right? Because I want the voters to see who I am in this moment, not a glimpse of who.
What photo are you referring to? Is it the one with like the white background where you're like kind of laughing?
No, that was a photo. Okay. That was a professional photo from 2018. That was the blue suit and the purple tie. Yes. There was one from 2014 on the Fairfield Square, and I think it's probably the one that's on the. I don't know. I haven't been to your main office, but anyway, they used it plenty of times on the literature, and it. I guess so. I was just trying to be a little bit sympathetic with not that I'm very sympathetic to big L libertarians or candidates in general. I do, like you said, like you tweeted, I think it's fine for politicians to feel pain or be threatened with violence, whatever, or at least the same violence of the state that they're threatening others. Like, if you're threatening people with public health protocols, you better apply those same threats to yourself, especially when you look at people like Gretchen Whitmer or just other folks or, so anyway, let's see what else we have here. What's like the dumbest thing you've ever seen a libertarian do, or what's the most kind of antisocial behavior you've seen from libertarians?
I mean, just, okay, the dumbest or the most antisocial?
You could get, both. I guess whatever you think.
So because of COVID, I actually haven't dealt with a ton of libertarians.
Did you see what that Cato guy tweeted at Thomas Massey?
When Thomas Massey was talking about firing Fauci, he was like, oh wait, no,
the Cato guy defending
the vaccine lottery. I saw that. That was crazy. Like, I don't know why so many DC libertarians tend to spend more energy disliking the conservative type libertarians like Massey than they do attacking the actual state evils that are happening, like wasting taxpayer dollars and locking people down in their homes. To me, that was definitely insane.
I would say there's maybe some other evils being perpetrated, but so our governor, Kim Reynolds, our beloved governor, she recently made an announcement that we're not going to do a vaccine lottery because our immunization rates are frankly good enough, and our hospital figures are really, really low. Like we don't have if there's a pandemic, it's endemic right now. There's not a threat of COVID surge in Iowa at the moment. Why would we need to do something really corny and hokey like a vaccine lottery to, yeah, like you said, like Thomas Massey described, take the money from the people and then gamble it back to them by getting them to adhere to, a corporate pharmaceutical product or whatever. So I was like really, really offended by this guy, not just as like a medical freedom person. I've done a lot on and medical freedom. That's a dog whistle for being anti-vax. So just to be clear to the audience when I say that, but I guess I that's something people attack me on. But like so when I see this comment, like it's dumb on so many levels, and then I take it as a personal offense because like I feel like I need to view my Republican governor, who, and again, she won handedly, but it was still like a 4-point spread where it's clear that, if 50,000 voters or however many it is choose something differently, then all of a sudden I am in a blue state that gets tortured like, Minnesotans or Michiganders, or just like, it was really horrible. The difference between red and blue is significant in the COVID era. And so this wise guy, Cato, whatever, on Twitter, criticizing vaccine lotteries, like I'm taking that like, is he coming at my governor? Anyway, I'm rambling now because I'm just so appalled that this guy could be so, I don't know what the right word is, but I want to, like Tom Woods retweeted and thankfully got on board, but like, I'm like, I want this man to be destroyed. Like, to me, this guy, whoever he is, I don't even know. Like I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what the heck a Cato is. But I'm really upset about this. I'm clearly bent out of shape right now, just reliving it, like this trauma. So I don't know. Sorry to go off on that tangent, but there's also like this other kind of, that would be like the professional loser brigade. But then there's this kind of lower level people who, instead of getting involved in legislative races, instead of getting involved in, say, lobbying at the state house, they'll never lift a finger and all they'll do is criticize. Have you kind of noticed people like that?
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere from when I was on college campus and there were people who were libertarian and had these ideas, but all they wanted to do was sit around and complain, not actually get out there, recruit, violate these free speech laws, do things to make a difference. They just wanted to sit around and whine about how horrible things are. And then even in grassroots politics today, there's plenty of people on Twitter who will complain and spend hours on there whining about how horrible, a certain politician is, or how, miserable certain policies are. But when you say, hey, like, do you want to volunteer for an hour to like make phone calls to actually make a difference? Do you want to, I can get you connected with people who will help you knock doors. I can help you run for office. And they don't want to take any tangible steps to improve their lives.
Why do you think that is? So you extend them the invitation, you make it as easy as possible for them to get involved. That's your job as a leader. And then why do you think they turn that down? Why don't they take that step forward into relevance and being impactful and just being a part of the solution in politics? Are they too good for it? Do they think you're wasting their time? Or what's your best guess?
A lot of people think they're too good for it because everyone, and I used to be the same way too. When I was into debates and research, I was like, oh yeah, I'm such a research person. I actually think I wanted to work for Cato or Heritage or something at the time.
Oh my God.
Everybody wants, when you get on Twitter and start putting your opinions out there, you start to think like, oh my gosh, I'm so important. My ideas are going to change the world. My contribution to liberty is just these ideas I'm putting online for people to see, and by having other people see these ideas, it's going to, I'm too important to do the hard stuff like knocking doors, like making phone calls, like improving myself by actually running for something, right? A lot of this is, they do think that they're too good to be doing these tangible action items. But the fact is, there's plenty of people out there with libertarian ideas on Twitter, online, everywhere. What we need is people who are willing to take action and do the slightly uncomfortable, slightly scary things like leaving their bedroom, logging off, going outside, talking to normal non-libertarians, convincing them to call their representative, convincing them to vote for a liberty-leaning candidate, right? So a lot of it is just people feel like they're too good for it, and sometimes they just aren't familiar with it, and they're maybe just scared of doing it, right? Like, it took me a lot of practice to be decent at phone banking or not be scared when I'm door knocking.
Right. Well,
So sometimes
hold
you
on.
have to just
Well, that's another thing, because I think that's another thing I've noticed too. And then even like for the Young American for Liberty program, that like they're making a phone call, like you can be good at it. Like that is a skill to develop, like being on the phone and being able to connect with someone with a cold call for politics. And obviously you're going to get hung up on, 8 times out of 10 or whatever.
Mhm.
But like, I think that was my thing too. Like when it used to be a chore, and it was because I didn't realize like this is something I could get good at it. And if I got good at it, it would be more enjoyable. And I like the whole kind of, I have to sit in this room and read off a script. Like even thinking back to the Ron Paul 2011 campaign in Iowa, when they were trying to corral volunteers and just kind of the way that they were tasking the volunteers, like, I don't know, like you need to make it needs to be fun for them, but it needs to be engaging. And there is this concept of doing it well. And I had that too. Like I remember I drove out into a district to do some door knocking in a primary a long time ago. And I was getting kind of halfway responses at the doors. And I realized like I wasn't bringing my energy. Like I devoted all this time. I spent money on my gas to drive out there. Like if I'm having a engagement with a potential voter, like I need to bring my A game. Like I need to really find a way to milk this opportunity. If I have FaceTime when I used to not really like door knocking until I realized that I have permission to talk about whatever I want to at someone's door. I don't have to read off my campaign script if I don't want to. I can develop my talking points, and it became more of like a creative, like, okay, if I'm going to this person's door, like what can I say to make them laugh and make them feel good or get to know who they are as a person versus just reading off my kind of political talking points. And then it became really, really fun. And then it became something I enjoyed. And so I think that's another kind of thing. And sorry for interrupting, but you just triggered that thought. Like there's a big variance in quality in terms of voter engagement that can make the difference and turn like a kind of boring, choreful experience into something that's fun, enjoyable. It becomes a stepping stone in professional development.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, right? It takes practice to be comfortable with it, to get confident at it, and to become good at it. And really, the only way to get better at it and to develop those skills is to get out there and try it. I mean, the first few doors I knocked when I was 14 years old, it was probably terrible. I probably had no clue what I was really saying. I was probably not, as good as I can be now. The first phone calls I made, I've definitely, screwed up or mixed up the script on a phone call. But it was because I was practicing and I was able to be there and willing to make mistakes that I finally got to a point where I can be comfortable calling voters and talking to them and door knocking now.
Well, so maybe that's the barrier then, because if you're comfortable writing papers and you're getting really good at being a troll on the internet, and then all of a sudden you have to build a new school skill set and you have to fail and have some really rough phone calls before you can get the hang of it. Maybe that's the barrier, just that 10 or 100 hours or whatever it takes to get proficient and skillful. So maybe it's not arrogance, maybe it's just kind of laziness, or I don't know. But I guess I don't want to put these guys down or be too dismissive, because I think that is going to be a key. Well, just to political science and leadership is, okay, how can I activate and direct a volunteer to someone who wants to help and make it a meaningful, productive engagement for everyone? Because I don't know, there just seems to be so much of this kind of libertarian culture of just sitting in back and complaining. And it's really kind of antisocial behavior that I think drives people away. Like there's a lot of I can't stand. And I wouldn't want to be in the same room with them because just their attitude is so negative. And even though I might agree with their philosophy on monetary theory or the Constitution, they're just,
I don't know. I've had a lot of really weirdness, I think, just for how my roles kind of developed and some of the things I've chosen to do. It's been really, really just kind of weird. I don't know. That'd be maybe for me and my therapist, or maybe just a podcast for myself talking about some of that. But anyway, so that's very, I think, very productive stuff. In terms of like your antisocial behavior, I saw you took a recent trip to the beach.
Yeah, so a week ago,
Tropical island Gothic. Can you explain what you mean by that?
a week ago, I was in Hawaii, just vibing on the beach, getting to see.
How'd you get to Hawaii?
I flew. It was a last minute trip, actually.
Did you have to take a COVID test?
Yes, I did. I was
that
nervous.
The full nasal swab, or what did they do to you?
It was just I just did it at Walgreens or CVS or something, and just did it myself and put it back in the little like drop box. But it was relatively, I don't know, I'd gotten a COVID test twice before, so it wasn't really.
The full nasal or just the tip of the nose?
I think it was the full nasal one.
So they scraped the back of your throat through your nose?
No, this was a self-administered one.
Oh,
like they didn't have someone come out and do it for me. They just.
All right, so I have a really hard. I'm very squeamish, and medical procedures make me very uncomfortable because I have a psychological disability. So I can't focus. I'm sorry for asking. I had to, but it makes me very uncomfortable to talk about. So you went to Hawaii. How long were you in Hawaii for?
I was there from Tuesday to Sunday. So,
and did you have a chance to visit former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard?
No, this was super last minute, and I actually looked it up while she was there, but she apparently is in California now because of the army. So I don't think she was actually in Hawaii.
Isn't she so amazing? Why is she so amazing?
To me, she is so different from all of the other Democratic people who ran for president last year, and really almost every other congressperson out there, or former congressperson people out there right now, because she was, first of all, just genuine. A lot of watching the Democratic debates for president, the amount of phoniness and just like fake woke pandering out there was insane. I remember the debate where everybody was, trying to speak Spanish, and they were doing it it was laughable. Like everyone was trying to one up each other by like speaking Spanish and pandering to this audience, but you really didn't see Tulsi doing any of that. She was just very direct and genuine to who she was. And she was also not afraid to speak truth, even when it was controversial and might upset traditional Democrats who want you to, respect your party and play nice to the other Democrats. My favorite video of her is still the speech she has in the Democratic debate, where she just absolutely destroys Kamala Harris for Kamala Harris's record on criminal justice reform and the horrible things that she did in California. So for me, it's a combination of how genuine she is as a person, and then her willingness to speak the truth, and her consistent. I'd say she has a pro-liberty philosophy, even when it is unpopular.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. You could visit her home state of Hawaii and bask in that aloha spirit. I trust you got a lot of sunshine. That was really good for your physiology. Now you tweeted this, that the government spies just keep following me everywhere, and it was a picture of a couple seagulls or birds. They look like pigeons or something. I don't know exactly what my question is here, but what did you mean by that? And I guess what made you suspect that you're inferring that the birds are government spies? Is that correct?
Correct. Birds aren't real. Have you heard about that before?
This is the first, but I'm happy to learn. Tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, so there is a belief, I think I learned about this in high school, and you can look it up. It's called Birds Aren't Real, that in the 60s or 70s sometime all the birds were replaced with were killed off, and everything that we know as a bird now is a government drone. And they use these.
Who told you this?
A kid in my speech and debate league in high school. He did a speech on it, and I think the speech is on YouTube. I can send it to you, but
I don't think I need to watch this. No.
But basically, the idea is, yeah, the birds are gone. They're replaced by government drones, and the government uses these bird drones to spy on us. And the way that these bird drones are constantly recharged is like, where do you see birds always sitting? On the power lines. It's not because they just want to sit there, but they're recharging. So birds aren't real, they're government drones. And, I think I had just like snapped my friend a picture of the birds or something, and he was just like, government spies. And I was like, yes, that's right, government spies.
All right, coming to a state house near you. I know you're not talking about my beloved Blue Jays, though. They would never betray me.
That's what you think.
Yes, that is what I think. All right, well, that's incredibly disturbing. I'm glad you're still employed professionally and that you're still have the humility to admit that your views are evolving. You still have a lot to learn. No, that's wonderful. I hope you can apply that skepticism to, well, it seems like you already have, to other animals and things. All right, you have a lot of very interesting views. I don't want to get you started on the post office because we're frankly running out of time a little bit. I want to briefly start a tradition on this show where I viciously attack the previous guest. So I don't know if you saw last time, there's this guy, Tho Bishop, on the show, and what a waste of space this guy is. I don't know. He's like the vice chair of the Republicans, probably just wasting his time, just sucking up to Trumpian, whatever, glorified redneck. Anyway, this guy, he was all just really boring, talking about economics and history and praxeology this and subjective value theory that, and just blah, 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 blah. He never once really talked about medical freedom at all, except tangentially, which to me is really disgusting. That, I mean, if you're having a conversation and you're not talking about the potential criminality of a lot of the state actions we've seen related to this health disaster, like, why are you even speaking? It's not even worth talking to you or listening because you're not saying anything that's worthwhile or relevant. We need to talk about, these Fauci emails and just what the heck's going on with Pfizer and Moderna and just all this crazy stuff. And he went off on some history tangent on things that happened over 100 years ago and thought it was relevant. So anyway, I'm so happy. And this guy wasn't even a woman. He was a guy. So why would anyone care about what he has to say anyway? So anyway, I just really want to take that opportunity to viciously attack him as a guest. Even though he's a friend of the show, he's not above my harsh verbal rebuke. And I don't know, do you think that criticism was fair?
Fair enough.
All right, good.
I'm a little nervous about what you're going to say about me next time.
Yeah, and that's the way we like it. We want to generate controversy to get more eyeballs on the show. As libertarians, it's very important that we infight as much as possible to make sure iron is sharpening iron. And at least for the ones that are iron, that we completely hack away the lesser metals and those that are not strong enough to withstand the forces of global communism or the bird drones or whatever have you that need to be put up with. Anyway, so yeah, I just want to end this with a prayer. Was there anything else you want to share or anything else that we haven't talked about that you really want to get off your chest, or you can always come back? So.
Nope. I mean, as long as we talked about the bird drones, I think I'm good.
All right, fantastic. Well, in that case, just want to end with a prayer. Just want to offer, obviously, thanks and glory to the Almighty Heavenly Father, creator of all. Just thank you to our guest, Naomi, just a delightful young woman who's really taking the world by the balls and doing what she knows she needs to do to be empowered in this chaotic world. That one person is capable of influencing entire state legislatures and the destiny of entire country. So just God continue to bless Naomi and guide her on that path, that she can be, basically the strongest, most, however you want to describe yourself, but just the best capable advocate for God's glorious kingdom as she can be.
Thank you so much to YouTube and Facebook and this Apple iPhone, realizing without our big tech overlords, I would be absolutely helpless. I would be completely just, ground to stone. Without these digital tools that empower us to communicate to many millions of people, like what would we do? So just God, please bless the giant tech corporations and guide them, that they can use their digital tools to, fulfill your glory and your kingdom on this earth. God bless you for all the animals and protect all the animals and the animal husbandry operations, that animals can be dignified and protected as God's creatures as they are. And that also for those who choose to can get as much nourishment as possible from all aspects of God's creation in the way that's most harmonious and dignified. Certainly pray for Tulsi Gabbard, that whatever she does next is equally awesome and endearing. And that we can really be led by beautiful women. I think that's what I most want for society. I don't know, anything else we need to pray about, Naomi?
No, I think you got it.
No, I pray for Young Americans for Liberty, all the people associated with that organization, all the candidates they've helped elect, all the door knockers that have put their blood, sweat, and tears, all the struggling libertarian 20-somethings out there that are trying to find their place in the world, that they can dedicate themselves to something that really is meaningful and worthwhile and can stand the test of time, a contribution that can really echo throughout eternity, versus all these kind of shit posts on Twitters or bullshit Cato articles that everyone's going to forget or possibly be used against them in crimes against humanity trials in the near future. So yeah, God just have mercy on all of us, especially the libertarians and those who, all the self-sabotaging traits that we have, just continue to bless us and guide us and keep us to be good stewards of this and your political theory. All right, in your name and for his heavenly kingdom or her heavenly kingdom, all great things, all glory to you. Naomi, thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with you today. I hope you'll come back sometime in the near future. Certainly your contributions. So thank you for you, your contributions to yourself, your family, the state of Texas, the United States of America. I really appreciate this opportunity and looking forward to tweeting and retweeting you a lot in the near future.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, see you. So, wait, how many views do you think we'll get on YouTube for this?
Maybe like 100.
You think we'll break 100? Okay, that would be the highest performing podcast to date. I think you have what it takes. So thank you so much. Yeah, well, we'll see you on YouTube sometime soon. Thanks, Naomi.
Yep, take care.